All right, cool. Okay, so welcome to this community call. Finally, we're gathered again. Let's quickly go through the agenda. So there are five main points. First is just reminding ourselves what the timeline looks like now based on the best current estimates. Then there's a quick founding member program update with some new news. There was some major news last week that I presume most of the people on the call have already caught. Then that relates to a kind of minor refresher of the tokenomics as they currently stand. And then I want to present kind of a model of how I believe JoyStream can gain adoption, which I've sort of talked about pieces of it at different times, but I've tried to put it all together here for the first time. I want to sort of try to present a unified model that people can discuss, give their points of view on, get people in the DAO to start thinking about, and hopefully I'll get some useful feedback on that. And then the community questions that were submitted. So just a reminder, if you want to ask a question and you don't want to speak, just write in the chat, and I'll make sure to check it frequently. And if you do want to speak and don't want to be recorded, I'll do it at the end. All right, cool. So jumping into the timeline. So this, I think, is the best estimate currently of the major milestones. So we are pretty deep into the Carthage development cycle right now. The runtime work is wrapping up. Testing in Pioneer is now into its second stage, I believe, community testing. We're starting the third stage on the 6th of September, which is in a week. And that's people testing everything from, the normal community voting council to validation. And there are a lot of things that are different now pertaining to how locks work and how you can get onboarded into the system using this concept of invitation balances. So there's a lot of ground to cover, but I think we're making very good progress. And then I think about a week after that, we're probably going to make the snapshot for Rhodes, the current live testnet, to be imported to Carthage. So as you guys know, guys and gals, we will in Carthage have a much more realistic Genesis block, but we will still, of course, try to move over some of the account balances for current memberships that are not yet founding members, because we want to be able to use the testnet. So that snapshot will probably be in 2 weeks or so from now. And then about a week after, I think it's likely to see the Carthage network go live. That's a fresh new chain, new version of Substrate. And a bunch of new things that are, I would say, very, very close to what the chain and runtime will look like on Mainnet. Keep in mind that the incentives program and founding member program is still running. People are still earning joy allocations, and that will be the case all the way up until the mainnet. There may be some specific day before the mainnet where we say, okay, at this point we will no longer stop counting things because we just can't keep track of the testnet. But practically all the way up until the mainnet launch, there will be an ability to learn joy. And then the main network itself, I mean, the vision for it was always for it to be identical to Carthage on the runtime side. I think maybe there are some small things we should accept that we will change after without running a whole new testnet. It's really, really hard to draw the line, but functionally, it's going to be pretty much equivalent. But of course, the Genesis block will be different. So that's the timeline. So why don't we go to the founding member program after that? So if you were part of the last call, you would have seen sort of this status of how the program has evolved. It's been running for quite a while, but we only really have inducted couple dozen founding members based on the threshold we had at the time, which was 15K. So that was 38 people that were already inducted, and then there were 18 or so people who were kind of eligible but had not formally been invited, which would make it 56 people. And there were quite a lot of tokens that had not been distributed. So we were not super happy with the amount of tokens that we were able to distribute in incentives v3, but that was sort of the status. And we also went through the Genesis block last time, as you remember. So founding members at the time, and of course that would continue to increase, but was around 9% or so. There was a big allocation for a parachain slot, which, if in case you're not Polkadot native, this refers to the ability to have security and interoperability from the relay chain, which would be either Polkadot or Kusama. Then you need to kind of offer a reward for that system to accommodate you. That's the short story. And we need to have quite a bit of tokens set aside for that, quite a generous amount reserved for like miscellaneous purposes. So that was sort of where we stood at the last time we went through the Genesis block, and we took kind of stock of where we were on the token side. Now, we did kind of ask ourselves, partly just based on kind of a summary, which we hadn't done in a while, and also based on feedback, is there a way to give more people access? Both people who had been active but were not founding members, and we have a large number of people who have been putting in a lot of effort for a lot of time, but we also have a lot of people who could be useful to the DAO, but maybe just haven't found the founding member program, or have only really made like a small dent in participating. Also, this if you look at the Genesis block here, there are quite a lot of tokens that need to be unlocked, and they need to be totally unlocked in order for them to kind of be deployable at some unknown time for a parachain slot. And that's kind of not great for the tokenomics of the system. So given the amount of uncertainty there was there, and whether there actually would ever be a parachain slot that we would need to use, and whether to what extent the community could fund it itself, it's not obvious that JS Genesis needs to allocate anything, because the council can actually issue new tokens within constraints for purposes like that. We really need to reevaluate it. And also, having such a large pool of kind of reserve funds without more clear plan for what they would be used for was not great. So we made some course corrections. So first thing we decided to do was to basically release the parachain allocation. So that means JS Genesis will not be holding on to those tokens for that specific purpose. That's going to be redeployed towards founding members. And I believe most people are already familiar with this. This was announced last week. So that's going to be distributed. Part of it is sort of instantly distributed, because we just doubled the allocations of anyone who has been into V3 incentives. We also reduced the threshold to 10K from 15. Which, if those two combined are, quite useful at giving more people access. I think those together immediately made 45 people or so above the threshold, and they are somewhere along the process of getting inducted. Martin is working with people. We have new portfolio of avatars being designed for you. So this should hopefully be finalized soon. Also, of course, there's a good chunk of that 10% that still remains, and that will just need to be distributed through bigger joy budgets all the way towards the end of the network. We also decided to unbundle the reservation, and basically, so this hasn't been announced before, use a substantial number of tokens for retroactive airdrops. And when I say retroactive, I mean before today. So there's just to be very, very clear about this, there's nothing anyone can do now to try to impact this. Otherwise, it would kind of be suicide to announce it. I'll go into the details in a few slides, but that's one important way of giving basically more tokens to the community, to people who, and that will include, by the way, people who are founding members or who are about to be founding members, through other activities that they may have been involved in, basically. So that will help to increase the allocation of the community, which is, I think, a good thing. And some of them will be before mainnet, but some of them will be after mainnet as well. It's unclear exactly what the split will be. We can get back to that, but that's one extra use. And also, there was a contingent of people working within JS Genesis that didn't have tokens for various reasons. So we decided to reserve a pool for them as well. It's unclear what that actual number ends up being, but it certainly wouldn't be more than that. So those are the major kind of course corrections we've done so far. So if you look at the kind of updated Genesis block, you see that it's not 20% for the founding members. We keep allocating out of that pool. We have 7% set aside to retroactive airdrop, so that's a substantial amount. So I think it's very plausible that anyone who's a founding member would be able to share in that. The way it's distributed is going to be subject to certain metrics, which probably will be flatter than actual founding member participation points, because they are very, very skewed, because there's a small contingent of people who've done a lot of work in the founding member program. So it's very disproportionate. I suspect it's going to be flatter, but I can't actually tell you any more details because I don't know, because the metrics are still being worked out. And then there are a few other allocations like miscellaneous smaller pools for creators and partners and so on. So that's the way things look today. I'm not going to say this is the absolute final picture, but at least that's I think a step in the right direction. All right. So just a reminder, anyone who wants to ask a question, I think you can even unmute yourself. We typically don't do that, but you can certainly also ask in the chat. All right. So here I want to share a little bit about what I believe is a very plausible model for how JoyStream as a platform can gain adoption. And I think I want to be very clear about the disclaimer here. This is a model. This is one model. It is not the model. Substantial portion of what this involves is what happens after mainnet and what chooses to be deployed, like what is deployed by the DAO, where resources are diverted. So, and certainly there are things that can be improved and researched further here. But I just want to share my point of view here, and I would be very happy to get some feedback on this. All right, so I think I want to start with a premise which maybe most people don't agree with, but I think there's good evidence for, and that is that YouTube is actually way, way too big. And there are a number of ways you can observe that, but you could look at the monthly active user rate, which is about 2 billion. You can look at the number of creators, number of videos, number of people, size of the organization that's managing it. It is absolutely gigantic. And the consequences when you have an offering like this, which is so big, it's that every single thing that you're doing, whether it's deciding who should be included or who should be monetized or how to monetize them or how products should evolve or like everything, and they do a lot. Like each one of those buckets that I've listed there are actually extremely complicated and involve very, very large teams having to make trade-offs across very, very large numbers of users and content. You're just always in a compromise situation. You're always trying to find what is like the least contentious, least difficult thing that doesn't absolutely break something for anyone. And it's actually very difficult to iterate and build a product that really serves people well when you're in this kind of a situation. So what I was saying is that if you look just at the history of how platforms and services evolve online, it's that when things get sufficiently big, they always get unbundled. And being this big is actually a weakness in being able to serve your users, because your users are just extremely diverse, heterogeneous, and they want different things and they have different constraints. And I want to show a pretty interesting example. It may not be something that everyone's familiar with, depending on how early they kind of got started online, but there is this very famous US, I guess kind of list goals website called Craigslist, which was founded back in the mid-90s. It basically has everything on it. It has like everything. Like you want to find a date, or you want to learn a language, or you want to have someone walk your pets. They have every conceivable thing, finding apartments. And it's actually still a very, very popular site. But what happened from the point of time it was founded, and like through the 2000s and later, was that it really did get unbundled into a variety of different verticalized offerings, right? And you can see how many absolutely gigantic services were actually just subdivisions of what was going on Craigslist. And you think about something like Tinder, and think about how Tinder improved upon Craigslist. On Craigslist, you just go and describe who you are and like what you're looking for and where to meet. And it's a very rough experience. And then you could pair the amount of customization and protection and support that you have on Tinder. It's a totally different experience that comes from being laser focused on the goals of some subset of users. And this has happened over and over again for all sorts of offerings. And I think it's pretty clear that that is going to happen for YouTube and does need to happen for YouTube. So in a sense, what I'm saying is that YouTube is sort of the Craigslist of video. They have a ton of users wanting to do a ton of different things, learn different things, and engage with each other. And they're all sort of participating in this one uniform way that the YouTube team is able to facilitate with all the other constraints that they're facing. And that's just not nearly as great as it would be if you're focused. And it's really hard to actually anticipate what that means. Like if you go back here, it's hard to anticipate a product like Tinder if you're just a person using Craigslist for meeting people and getting dates, right? But it is possible once you focused, and really, so like the thrust of what I'm saying is, oh, did someone want to say something, or is someone inadvertently? Okay, I'll just continue. So really the power comes from your ability to focus on smaller groups of people who are more similar to each other, because then you're better able to match them with each other, like because they're actually looking for, some people are looking to learn languages, some people are looking to I don't know, learn the latest political events and discussion about it. And all these kind of different objectives require matching between people who are making content, trying to build an audience, which is very difficult to, certainly when you're beginning, and people are trying to find the relevant content. They don't even know who or what they're specifically looking for. And you have one sort of mega algorithm that's trying to match and pair all these people. And that's very difficult. So with this focus, you're able to have fewer trade-offs, you're able to have faster iteration, and in general, it's just a very powerful situation to be in relative terms. Now, of course, you could say this is true, but like, what is the role of Web3 in this? You could just do what Tinder did. Like Tinder isn't Web3; it's just a service, right? And that's certainly true. But I do believe there are some like systematic reasons for why Web3 is the right infrastructure for doing this, and certainly a core reason is that if the whole point of what you're doing is to be able to explore and find differentiated experiences and having developers come and invest in building new things and experimenting, then your ability to draw in developers is going to be key, and have a lot of experimentation. And this is really where Web3 shines, and that comes from a bunch of different properties. I think the most important ones are that there is this neutrality. So all the data is open for everyone to build on in a permissionless way. That certainly means that network effects, which is the most difficult thing for anyone who wants to innovate when it comes to all these services like Tinder or a Craigslist or a YouTube, that's the main actually difficulty that they face. That becomes public and much easier to access. There's the open source ethic and tooling and standards and everything that's available. And then there's also the sort of what I call financial and monetization superpowers that are kind of built into Web3 that are really not present in Web2. And if you want to use them, you kind of have to tack them on. And it's sort of always, it's going to be external to the core experience. So I think you can make a very strong case that the power of, or the prospect of unbundling this mega service and the potency of using Web3 to do so is kind of the key to having JoyStream be adopted by creators and consumers. And you can sort of break that down into a more granular kind of overview based on the goals of the different stakeholders. So for example, you can look at creators. What do they want? They're trying to build an audience, grow an audience, find an audience. And how does Web3 have a comparative advantage there? Well, this potency in unbundling, being able to focus, means that matching and discovery is going to work a lot better. So if you're a new person starting a channel about exercise or something, and there's an unbundled kind of venue where you can more closely connect with people who are very focused on this, that's going to be much better for you than going in and competing through like one universal algorithm to basically be connected with people who are consuming all sorts of things. You get a similar story when it comes to income and monetization. I think the story is pretty clear there. Predictability is important for a creator. Obviously, you're making investments over the long term. You are building the audience, you're building your content catalog, your presence. And I think there it's actually a mix of both a competitive landscape of people catering to you as a creator, meaning that you can exit from one experience and go to another if something goes wrong, but also this idea that you don't need to be you're not sort of beholden to one moderation and policing policy, which is really the main reason creators face an unpredictable kind of a scenario, or they have kind of unpredictability in what gets monetized or how well. It's because, you know, you just have this one channel which has one policy that has to apply to so many different creators and has a limited ability to actually pick up the nuances of what a creator is doing. And so by this unbundling, you have a better ability to get something that matches more closely with what you're doing as well. And you can get a similar story for the consumer side as well. Of course, they're trying to do discovery. They want to find more unique experiences, you know. So we found out now that actually short form video, very, very short form video without any navigation, i.e. TikTok, is something a lot of people find very compelling. And that was something that YouTube eventually had to copy, and now they're kind of racing to try to do that. But this ability to discover these kinds of new experiences, I think, is you know, in this context of this mega pool of creators stuck under one policy regime without their data being reusable for developers, I think is in a much worse position than it can be under Web3. And for developers, I think the story is very simple as well. So I think this kind of this table summarizes how I think there are unique value propositions that we can bring to all the different stakeholders involved in a sort of social video environment. All right. And this is not sort of entirely hypothetical. The first steps in this direction are beginning in Carthage. So in Carthage, we will specifically be making it possible and practical for the first time for standalone operators to make verticalized versions of Atlas. So Atlas, in case you haven't seen, is the kind of consumer experience that you find on play.joystream.org. And it's sort of the familiar YouTube kind of experience where you view and publish and consume stuff, and there's some NFT features and commenting and all that good stuff. But now we're making it much more possible for you to go ahead and take Atlas off the shelf, rebrand it to something else. You know, I don't know, MMA tube. I love MMA, so it's like a hypothetical thing I could see people doing. You get to rebrand it, add your own logo. You get to make your own category space for videos. That's an important new feature. So if you go to Atlas right now, you're sort of stuck with this set of categories that actually come from the curators, but they're not very. If you wanted to make a verticalized Atlas for, like, say, I don't know, cooking, you would want a totally different way to break down the content, and you would want to filter on content that only pertains to cooking. So if there's another MMA Atlas that someone's running, you don't want lots of MMA stuff in your cooking Atlas, if you see what I mean. So there's now an ability for each operator to define kind of a schema of categories to power their experience, filter the content across the application, across search and browsing and discovery, to only focus on that content. And there's going to be a new gateway working group where the initial set of it's basically like a paid role to run one of these gateways. So we're foreseeing, you know, this is a hypothesis that the DAO is well served to actually give a stable income to the first people who are trying to do this. And then probably we'll learn a ton about how that should be done well, and all sorts of things that need to be sort of changed in common across the infrastructure to make that more practical. Because right from the get-go, it's still going to be harder than in the long term to get a verticalized atlas going, because you're still starting out with a very small content pool. But it is not going to be possible. And also, we're going to be deprecating the sort of official atlas. There shouldn't really be an official atlas. So we're renaming it, putting it on a different domain, so it's not really emphasized as distinct or more prominent than the other one. So this is something I'm really looking forward to, and I hope people are interested in trying out, joining that working group, and certainly on Mainnet experimenting with making their own vertical version of a video community. So that would be really cool. So I've talked really quickly. Let me try to break down this kind of mental model into some concrete steps where we talk about what people are trying to do at each step. So there are 4 kind of hypothetical stages. These don't need to be in this specific order. You can drop a stage, you can include a stage, but this is like one way to think about how the story goes. So the first stage is the mainnet launch itself. Let's say we said mid-October or so, has the basic set of features that a lot of people will be familiar with. It's the NFTs, it's the YouTube Partner Program, that I believe a lot of people will be familiar with, but not everyone. But it's basically to incentivize people who have a presence on YouTube to replicate their content on JoyStream and start participating there. And also this verticalized atlas concept that allows you to kind of segment off content specific verticals. And, the idea there will be that for creators, in particular, small creators with a small audience, maybe no audience, maybe they're just starting. Maybe that's the right way to acquire them, is to find people who are trying to get started but actually haven't. On some niche subject, they'll be motivated by the NFT sales and royalties, the YouTube Sync rewards, the YouTube Sync backup and safety feature. We believe that's going to be feasible by mainnet launch. That's not a guarantee. It could be just people being inquisitive, ideologically aligned with the idea, and also just this simple idea that being early on a new platform, you don't know whether it's going to work out, but taking an option on doing it certainly can be worth your while if it's not too difficult. On the viewer side, it's going to be people who typically want to support the creators that are there right then. Maybe they want to get involved with some new community around an interest that they have, or they're just curious or just aligned with this general idea, as we see quite a lot of people actually are very aligned with this more permissionless open content platform. So that's the first stage. The second stage is the release of the creator tokens. So that is where we allow creators to issue kind of a revenue capture token, fungible revenue capture token for their channels. That could be somewhere around Q1 next year. Now that's already part of the chain, so it's not really critical for JS Genesis as such to ship this. But the designs and the product side is, I'd say designs are about halfway there, and then the product execution hasn't started in terms of the implementation. So that's a rough date, Q1, rough time scope. And there, obviously, the goal for creators to engage to that is, people to raise funds. A lot of creators are capital constrained. They want to invest in equipment and storytelling and traveling, all this kind of stuff. And also to align their existing community into more of a team that can help them kind of produce things, do research, sort of in the same way that you guys are doing in the JoyStream DAO right now. So it's obviously a very powerful tool. And on the viewer side, you have people that want to support creators, that want to invest, find talent, signal status. That's kind of going to be the mix of incentives for the first batch of people getting involved. The third stage, and this maybe should be the second stage, I'm not sure, is to enhance the way Atlas currently works. So really, Atlas right now is just a pure front-end product, as a very, very, very thin back-end. But it really can't do recommendations or search or featuring that really is based on what the user does in any kind of way. We don't even have user accounts, which is kind of crazy. Once that gets in place, the V2 of that backend, it's, I believe, with the combined focus on a very small content niche, I believe you have a very strong chance at actually delivering a better content consumption experience than YouTube for a specific vertical, because it's actually very easy to do recommendations and search when you are dealing with a corpus, which is, let's say, 10,000th the size of YouTube. That's a homework assignment, actually, just doing the proof of concept there. It's when you get to that scale that you get into all sorts of trouble. So that, I think, is going to be a milestone, because then you can really kind of on the core feature set compete with YouTube. So that's going to be very exciting. I think I'm not breaking down in terms of who would show up at this stage, who didn't show up prior, but I think we just imagine just a continuous improvement in the experience. And lastly, of course, it's the builders, right? So far we've been building the network effect, we've been hardening the tools, hardening the infrastructure, improving the code base. And at this point, it starts to become really interesting for people to come in and not fork Atlas to just be a clone, but to be a totally new thing, in the same sense that, let's say, TikTok was a totally new thing to YouTube. And I think that's a mix of things that need to arrive for that to be really feasible. Certainly, it's having a MVP content catalog. It's having better software libraries to make it easier to write applications. And also another idea, which Tomato, senior community member, if I can call them that, has been pitching for a long time, which I'm more and more buying into, is that maybe just like we allow creators to kind of access capital markets through their creator tokens, you should allow the gateways to do the same thing. And I think one of the most clear examples of how useful that is to just look at how the developer ecosystem on Ethereum was bootstrapped. They launched in 2015. It was really a ghost town for the longest time. And what really allowed the development teams to start building useful tools and useful offerings was the ability to issue a token and get budgets going. And of course, the way these gateway tokens would work is the same with creator tokens. They capture the revenue that the gateway could receive from the DAO to be dispersed to the token holders. So I think that mix of incentives and just frankly offering developers to build on top of an open content catalog, which is something you just really can't do at all anywhere, I think is going to be really effective. So those are my 4 stages. If people have different points of view or criticism or analysis, I would love to hear, but I think this is the way I'm thinking about it currently. Hey, Omer, I'm saying you're asking about live streaming. I think I already have one of your questions on this. So I'll just get to it when I do. And so I think actually you're first up. There we go. So you have 5 questions. Yeah, I think we have time. So first one is, can we make Atlas have live streaming? By which I think you mean like Twitch kind of live streaming. So could we do that? Well, not for mainnet. That's certainly not feasible. I think that's something that's technically would just require some different infrastructure than what we have today. So there are off-the-shelf live streaming infrastructure software that you can just pick off of other projects. I mean, there's this project called LivePeer, which actually has a network where you can sort of source transcoding and live streaming. Integrating with them might be hard because they're all over on an Ethereum L2, but if you don't want to do that, then you could just take their software. They have something called the Mist server, which can at least do the transcoding. I think also the content delivery. So a gateway could do this on their own. A gateway could actually just use off-the-shelf CDN and live streaming features just from Amazon or something if they wanted to do it. It doesn't all need to live at the kind of blockchain layer. It doesn't need to be an incentivized role in the chain. So will that be a priority that the DAO makes? I don't think they will. I'm not sure they should, but it doesn't prevent it from people building products that have that bundled in. Will chat comments be on the blockchain too? I don't think so. In fact, I mean, it's not even clear to me that our current chats that are on chain should be on chain. You can make off-chain chat features where you make kind of the video owner kind of an owner of an append-only log that kind of runs on separate infrastructure off the chain. If you're a developer, you may be familiar with something called Ceramic from the Ethereum. Actually, I'm not sure whether they're their Ethereum project per se, but there are other ways of having kind of graphically secure logs that are owned by a single author, where you can put lots of public data that can get indexed, and then you don't need to pay fees or anything. And I think comments, reactions, certainly chat logs for a live stream probably could fit into that bucket. So, because I think it would just be very bad if you have to make a transaction for each log entry. All right. Will there be a function that we can see on YouTube most viewed part of video? This function is most liked function on YouTube. I actually love this as well. I think this is awesome. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I totally agree. Do people love it? I don't know if they do, but I love it. So could we have that? I mean, there is this question of where we should put read data. So currently we have Orion V1, which has the read data for kind of our official version of Atlas. And what you want is you want to aggregate the read data for everyone. And then you compute the sort of view intensity graph. It doesn't have to be dynamic, it can be once a day or something. And then people can just query that. So technically, I don't think it's very hard. I do wonder whether we should wait before we double down on building a feature like that to figure out, okay, how should we actually organize the read data? Because on one hand, it's like privacy sensitive stuff. On the other hand, it actually powers really useful features like the one you just described. So it would be good if developers can access it. So how do you kind of combine those two? I think that's a difficult problem to solve. I think the council definitely will need something like the view data because they need to be able to pay creators. But should it be public for everyone? I don't know. So I think this is like a feature that depends on resolving a bunch of different questions first. Hey, Hans, I will read your question once I'm done with this one. All right, number 3, which statistics will be available for video channel owners so they can use their right. So this goes to analytics, which is powered by the same read data, basically. So I think it's just the same question. We definitely do need to have analytics. There was an early attempt way back when Atlas was designed to make the first kind of analytics dashboard. It was just deprioritized. Actually, it was pretty good. But I think before investing in that, there needs to be a decision made. Where does this data live and who can read it? Does it live inside each gateway? So you can just read from that gateway. But what if you're a creator and you get people viewing you across lots of different gateways? You don't get an aggregate view. Is that useful? So again, this is an example of an unresolved. It's like this is one of my like top 3 unresolved important problems. So it does kind of bottleneck both this cool feature and the analytics side. All right, we must pay for fees to dislike video or write a comment. It can become crypto based, but if token price hits some high points, people can't like or comment, and streamer doesn't. So lots of questions here. I think the main point here is just what if the token becomes really expensive? Will everything becomes expensive? And that's a really good question. This is one of the things I'm working on these days. Me and a bunch of other people is kind of calibrating the fees and costs of doing various things. And what you have to do there is you kind of implicitly inside of your blockchain have to make some assumptions basically about what the token price is, because you have to say something like, I want it to cost at least this much for someone to spam a whole block, basically, which is kind of what you want to kind of put a price on doing a denial of service attack over a certain period of time. And so that obviously depends on how much is your token worth, because you can only charge in your native token. Yeah, so there has to be some notion of this, even if implicitly in the chain, and this can be updated. So I don't know if it will for mainnet be updated in that it can be updated through a proposal, but it certainly in principle could be updated later. And for me, it's actually astounding to look at how many chains, including Polkadot and Kusama, don't update this so that the prices and existential deposits and all these kinds of important things are kind of fixed, which is kind of scary. I don't know how they get away with that, but they certainly do. But that doesn't need to be the case, certainly. So let's say it costs a cent to post a video, and then the token price goes 80x or something. Should it then almost cost $1? No, it shouldn't. But of course, you have to have some, the way you adjust this needs some time sensitivity, and there are short-term changes and long-term changes. So there's no reason this needs to be a long-term problem, but you can't have it be like a dynamic price unless you start charging in stable coins and that kind of stuff, which I don't think is a good idea. Okay. So Hanzo Hazashi, good to meet you, by the way. Quick question: when Mainnet launches, where will we see our Joy? Will it be listed on any known wallet like Binance or Coinbase? Right. So I can't give you any answer to that, to be honest with you. I don't have the answer to it, and it's not something you can kind of control. So these platforms are all sorts of priorities about when to do various integrations and their business processes and so on. So this is not something I focus on, and I would never want to make any promises about. I think that's the best I can do. I think maybe what I'll do is I'll make a separate video or something about like my role in trying to prognosticate about how various things will evolve post mainnet, because I think I need to generate a little bit more clarity about that and what is actually under my control and what is not. But all I'll say is I don't know. That's the answer. Okay. Amna Malik answers, creators will want from JoyStream to run ads on their videos and they can earn money from them too. What is our stance on it? Yeah, I think that creators want to monetize, I think, more than run ads. They can run ads in their own content, like doing partnerships and inserts in their content natively, which a lot of creators do, because it's often best way to kind of match your audience with some kind of partner. But there are also these kind of big transactional ad systems like you have on YouTube, and they actually serve a useful purpose, despite a lot of people being unhappy with them at times. The way that would work is that the gateways would really run those advertising schemes, and they would have to kind of remit value back to the DAO through a sort of a gateway fee. This may be kind of bit esoteric if you haven't heard of this before, but you can think of it as the apps kind of being at some point asked to pay for the content that they're presenting, and then the creators get paid from the DAO, which is kind of this intermediary, the council, which has this idea of council payouts that can happen at arbitrary periods of time, which are going to be incorporated in Atlas for Mainnet as well, where the council can pay people, and they could pay people using whatever scheme they want. Maybe it's, X amount of dollars per Y number of views, or maybe you get a special deal because you're, attractive person to have on the system. But that's the way that would work, basically. So advertising isn't native to the DAO or JoyStream itself. It's something the application layer can do and probably has to do for a bunch of reasons. But I am certainly, again, I think I hear a lot of crypto founders being very antagonistic with respect to ads. I am not one of them. I think advertising is really great. It generates a lot of things that are free for a lot of people. And I think we'd be worse off online if we didn't have ads. It does suck to only have ads, though. And so creators will be able to monetize through a variety of other means, which I covered on this slide here. If you go back and check it out later, I think the marketing working group will publish this later, probably. So hope that was helpful. All right. We're starting to run out of time, but I'm getting some. All right. See you later, Isanar. Omer asks, I'm running a validator node with TJoy for the time being. How will validator system work on Carthage test phase? TJoy or Mainnet Joy? I think validators will just keep earning TJoy, of course. Everyone does in the mainnet. And then this will be rewarded in Joy, just exactly as before. So I don't think, Martin hopefully will make a definitive statement about incentives on Carthage. However, I don't see any reason why it would be any different. So you should just, if you were happy before, you should be more happy now because the overall Joy budget has increased. All right, let's just power through here. Isanar asks, who just left, what is the status of creator token feature? What functionalities expect to be available by mainnet launch? So in the chain, I think pretty much all of it, except possibly with with regards to there's this built-in AMM feature, a market making feature, which allows these creator tokens to have liquidity, even though they are very unique and bespoke and people may not know about them. That feature, I don't know whether we'll make it for mainnet. Possibly it will. The designs for it already kind of technical designs. The product designer, I think I'm repeating myself from earlier, but just so this can be a segment that can be published later. The creator token features have been designed about 50%. I think I heard 2 days ago. It's been paused for a while because of the YouTube Partner Program designs, but it looked really great last time I saw it. There are some preview videos on our channel on play.joystream.org where you can find run-throughs by Kuba, one of our designers, who does great run-throughs on that. So you can definitely check that out to see like what does this actually look like. But basically, short story, the blockchain side will probably be done. The product side will not be done, but that's much easier to do for anyone, not only JS Genesis. So that's kind of the way we decided to draw the line, so to speak. But we are planning on doing it. More on fungible tokens from Isanar again. Will creator tokens be extrinsically bound to the content system, or will it be possible for DAO participants to launch their branded tokens independently from their video creator community? So, I mean, it will be bound in that it's bound to your channel. Like you can't issue a creator token if you don't have a channel, but you can certainly connect benefits to your creator token that doesn't have to do with JoyStream. So creator tokens in JoyStream capture NFT revenue, payouts from the council, any other revenue that may be added in the future will be captured in those. That's kind of the way it's embedded in the JoyStream DAO and blockchain. But of course, you can say, you know, I have a concert next month and everyone with X number of tokens will be able to enter, or anyone who has had tokens for more than 6 months will be able to join me or whatever. So, or enter my Discord or whatever. So these sorts of things you can layer on top. That layering isn't built into Atlas or JoyStream, but it's certainly possible. And maybe it's something we should invest in as a community, to have API integration, so it's really easy to make a kind of a creator token gated Discord, for example. That would be really interesting if someone wanted to make that. So it should be pretty flexible, and Kuba designed some really nice kind of like if you're dealing with Kickstarter kind of parts of a channel where the creator can really express themselves and explain what's the purpose of the creator token and what you can do and how you can get involved, which can allow the creator the space to say more about what it means outside of the content system. So hopefully that is kind of what you're wondering about. Ismail is asking, can we introduce such a system for Atlas in which owner of a channel can invite teammates and his managers, editor, and handle some responsibilities of the channel? Yes, we can. In fact, we have. There is this idea of a channel collaborator, which is already in the chain. It's not part of Atlas. I'm not sure whether it should be part of Atlas because it could complicate it, but there is such a feature where other people can come to your channel, and there is even permissioning related to this. So, for example, you can add someone as a collaborator, and they can only upload videos. They can't issue NFTs or issue a creator token, for example. So that's already there, but not in Atlas, but in the chain. Maybe it should be added to Atlas. Depends on how complicated it is, to be honest. I don't know. Probably it will be the nicest experience for the collaborators, but if this is a very small number of users, there is some complexity in making Atlas more complicated as a product. So that's the cost and benefit side of it. Hanzo asks, sorry, I was disconnected. When we receive Joy and the 24-hour vesting is over, will we be able to cash out? Yes, by the definition of vesting, indeed, you will be able to cash out. And the vesting is continuous, so it's not like you have to wait until that day, but yes. So it's really, I mean, cash out, what does that mean? Really, the only thing that the blockchain controls is whether you can move assets on the chain, which, you know, that can mean to another person, can mean to an exchange, or it can mean to a parachain if it was integrated with that, or through IBC, or whatever other kind of mechanism for moving the assets. The vesting just prevents that, and after that, you're free to do whatever you want. And there is some initial liquidity. I think it's 8% for for the community and team and so on. So you wouldn't have to wait for 24 months to be able to access some percentage of your tokens, 8%. Yeah. All right. How can JoyStream community that came out of founding member program really own the JoyStream platform if its collective share of the entire JR allocation promised by JS Genesis is only 20%? That is very small. I don't consider VCs and backers as part of the community as well as JSG core team. Community must own 55% of supply. This is Isanor, who's clearly a bit upset. I think, well, at least after this change, that number has increased now at least to 30%, I think, if you add up the creators. And, well, I don't know if Isanor counts the creators, so this is an open question. But there's the retroactive airdrops and so on. So if you go back to that slide, maybe that changes your mind. It still wouldn't be 51%. So, I mean, that's, I guess, we're not going to get there as far as Isanor is concerned. I do think that there's dilution coming out. I do think you should really discount the extent to which VCs care or bother or are able to actually participate. So I don't think it's going to be a hindrance for the community will, so to speak. But ultimately, we're not going to hit that number. And that's just the way it is, unfortunately. All right. Still love you, Isanor. Still love you. Songoku asks, all DAO community suggestions is decided by council via voting. Will we have Pioneer feature where instead of council, all DAO community members need to vote instead, aside from elections? Haha. Ha ha ha. I've thought about this. I think that's really an interesting idea. We won't have it in time for mainnet. Should we have it? I'm just very skeptical how much voting people will do on all sorts of things. So the only other thing I think maybe sounds like a good idea, and again, on the governance side, we will have the benefit of actually seeing it be used before we need to make any decisions about this. But I just think you want to limit the number of decisions everyone needs to be involved in. So let's say if there was maybe a separate body from the council, like the, I don't know, Supreme Court or something, and all it could do was like reject proposals or something like that, which could serve a purpose to make the system safer. That could allow you to maybe shorten the grace periods for certain other key proposals because you knew that there was this other body that could block proposals. Stuff like that, maybe that should work. Maybe you could add the feature to allow the community to vote directly on proposals for like emergency purposes. But I think you, in those cases, would need to have a very, very high quorum. And then I don't know if that would ever happen because you see from other DAOs that it's like 5% or people vote, or probably less than that, actually, even on important proposals. So TLDR, we won't for mainnet. I'm not sure we should for all but maybe one or two other major decisions, but time will tell. All right. Next is from Eclipsing Binary. Good to see you. Hope you're on the call. Love your content. Number one, should we have weekly working group calls to form coherence? I think so. I think that just like any organization, weekly, daily calls. I mean, I'm not sure if this is mainnet or testnet, but certainly on mainnet, I think it's very hard to imagine the system working well without there being really high frequency calls between key people that need to exchange ideas and discuss things. So I say yes. Leads and deputy calls to form cross-group coherence. Absolutely. I think there's been too little of that, actually. That probably partly comes because of how incentives come from JS Genesis. But for example, I know that there are tons of tools that the curators really would need that the builders could build. Like, I don't know, some kind of CRM or something to manage who has checked out what video. I know builders could build stuff, certainly for the infrastructure side, to like benchmark how well nodes are working, doing denial of service attack tests, all this kind of stuff. There's tons of opportunities for this cross-group coherence, as it's being referred to. It's not happening now. I think it should. I hope it will. I think we depend on it being the case, but it currently isn't. So I totally support that. Should worker attendance be incentivized? I don't know what that means. Attendance where? In the calls? I think workers in the DAO should be like workers in any organization. So there's certain requirements for participation. If you work in some office or something, probably there's a subset of meetings you just have to show up to, even though you may not want to be in all of them. and you should, meetings are not for free, but still they serve a function. So incentivize, I think it should just be a requirement, frankly speaking. Yeah. Let me just check back here. Hansa says, yeah, you don't have to wait. That's correct. Sengoku says, thanks for answering. Clipping Binary says, thank you. No problem. All right. Next one is, again, Clipping Binary. Should Atlas have its own referral program? It will. I believe the YouTube Partner Program has a tier for, it's only for creators, though. So if you are a creator and you get your friends to join, you will be paid for that as part of the YouTube Partner Program. Not for Carthage, but for Mainnet, I believe. So yeah, that's already in there. So I hope that works. I mean, creators are in networks. They know each other, people who publish on the same verticals. They know other relevant people. So if it's working for you, it's probably going to work for another person who makes videos about skiing or whatever the thing is. So, so that's in there, and hopefully it will work. I'm a bit bummed by how poorly our referral program for the founding member program worked. There could be 1,000 different reasons for that, but I have hope this one will work better. All right, last question. If you want to ask a question in the chat, you have to do it now, or this is going to be it. What are JSG's marketing plans for Mainnet? Do you plan to hire professional marketers, or do you plan to rely solely on the DAO? Is this roadmap still relevant? I think I saw this. I don't know. No, I don't think that's particularly relevant at this point. So in terms of hiring professional marketers, really, there are a lot of crypto projects that market just to crypto in general, because their customers or users are just like other crypto people. And frankly, a lot of it is just for people to actually be involved in buying and investing in the project more than actually using it. So I think for us, marketing would only, and again, here I'm speaking mainly up until Mainnet, but the main point of marketing for us, mainly after Mainnet, but the main purpose of marketing for us is to draw in creators. Really, that's the key for us, because those are the people who will use the products, draw in consumers, spread the word by the virtue of being creators. And so just doing generalized kind of crypto marketing, the way I think a lot of people have in mind when they ask us what are our marketing plans, that will very unlikely be the case. Will we hire someone? I doubt it. So I will be spending much more time on this going forward, and that will just mean doing lots of very unscalable things, getting in touch with people, getting in touch with creators, trying to work with them one-on-one, understanding what works for them, what doesn't work for them. And that's really, I think, what the core of the marketing needs to be. It needs to be focused on the users. I'm sort of neglecting the DAO side. That is covered now. We have an ample supply of really capable people who understand lots of things about how the DAO works that I don't, frankly. So next phase is really creators. So I hope that answers the question. All right, last one is from Hanzo. Will value of Joy remain the same, or is it subject to rise and fall upon launch on Mainnet? Well, it's an asset like anything else, so there's no price fixing. It's the way when we quote the value of Joy in everything we do, you can read on the handbook. It's based on our last round, which is quite a while ago. So, you can make all sorts of stories about should it be higher, should it be lower, should it be, I'm not to judge. We've just been crystal clear about what this means. What is kind of the dollar equivalent in terms of the percentage of supply and so on. And then people have to make up their own mind. Where do they think this is going? But yes, it definitely at all times is subject to the dynamics of the marketplace. So we're not exempt from that. Okay. So I think that'll have to be it. It's great to see a bunch of people I haven't seen in a while. Igrex, Batsochi. I'm probably slaughtering these names, but good to see a bunch of you. Good to see some new people. I wish we could do one of these calls where we had video on, but for any of you who've been with us for a while, and you know how badly that went for one of those calls. So I guess we'll just have to continue to do it like this. If you have any questions or remarks about anything I've said, please just let me know on Discord, and hopefully the marketing group will have this out the door soon with some sweet translations as well. All right. Thank you very much. See you soon. Take care. Bye.